So record wildfires, an impeachment, a pandemic, riots, the Weinstein verdict, murder hornets, a highly divisive political climate and election, Justice Ginsburg dies, and Prince Harry and Meghan Markle quit the royal family, all in just the last 12 months, which has to be the longest year in recorded history. All of us have felt the effects of 2020, and employers have had to deal with more challenges than ever before. Amongst the health and economic crisis, employers have had to manage a transition to a partial or full virtual workforce, changing safety protocols, changing legislation, local mandates, compliance requirements, regulations, and the ripple effect of COVID-19 on their business and employees. Now more than ever, employers are turning to their trusted advisors for leadership, and out of these many challenges is the opportunity for professionals to step up and lead. Today, we will hear from experts in the field on ways they have been able to help their clients navigate these changing times, as well as how they've been able to grow their practices despite the cancellation of most traditional methods of marketing and client development. So without further ado, let's meet our panelists. Candace, would you please start by introducing yourself?
I'd be thrilled to. Thanks, Lana. And I'm just really pleased to be presenting today with Jeff and Yesenia. My name is Candace Gottlieb-Clark. Dynamic Team Solutions is a boutique consultancy, and we specialize in interpersonal workplace relations. My background is in counseling and psychology. 20 years ago, I became a conflict resolution professional, and then I spent the next 7 years running community-based conflict resolution programming within the Los Angeles County Bar Association. I formed my company as I saw the need for these similar services in businesses and the workplace. At Dynamic Team Solutions, we are often called upon to support businesses that are in the midst of growth, change, and sometimes crisis. We take teams that are floundering or fighting, and we awaken their collaboration. We take leaders and we help them not only to reach their potential, but through coaching, we help them to develop their businesses and make organizational and strategic planning efforts successful. I look forward to sharing a lot of the experiences our clients have had and ways that that might also tie in with how employment lawyers can build their practices by being really beneficial and helpful to those clients going forward. So thank you.
Thanks, Candace. Yesenia, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Lana. My name is Yesenia Gallegos. I'm a partner with McDermott, Will, and Emery in the employment practice group based in Los Angeles. I'm both a counselor and a litigator. About 50% of my time is spent counseling employers across various industries on personnel management, and especially in California, wage and hour issues and avoiding litigation, and really just problem solving day-to-day HR issues. And when I'm not doing that, I'm defending cases, whether they're class actions or single plaintiff matters. And I'm really excited to be here and learn from my co-panelists. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Jeffrey.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being with us. My name is Jeffrey Horton Thomas. I'm a partner in the Labor and Employment Law Practice Group of Fox Rothschild. I work out of the Century City office. Fox Rothschild is a national AmLaw 100 full service firm. We're up to about 950 lawyers. My career path was the reverse of many people. I started in a couple of small firms, then built my own employment litigation defense firm of about 6 to 7 lawyers. I then went to my first AmLaw 100 firm, Ackerman, going from small to big. And I've now been with Fox Rothschild since the pandemic started, well, a little bit after that in mid-May. And I'm very happy to be with Fox.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you everyone for joining us. I think everyone's tired of being presented to, so we definitely want to keep this dialogue. And so we'll have a few polls for people to answer that are participating on the webinar. And then if you have any questions, go ahead and enter them into the Q&A. And then we'll also have a survey at the end. So why don't we start with our first poll just to see who is here with us today. So if you're logged in, please select which of the below best describes your work. So advice and counsel only, employment defense litigation, counseling and litigation, mediation, plaintiff employment lawyer. I'll give you about 30 seconds. So it looks like we have a bit of a mix, but more than half of the group does both counseling and litigation. Great, well, that's helpful in steering our conversation. All right, so we've kind of touched on the big things that have been going on this year. Candace, why don't we start with you? What are the issues employers are coming to you about?
Well, we like to do proactive planning, but as you might imagine, this year has been a lot of reactive work with our clients. Largely, the issues we're seeing are stemming from current and provocative things that are happening. So earlier this season, we saw a firm that suddenly experienced a lot of turnover. They had a sudden loss of talent, like an exodus, and it came immediately on the heels of their making a post in support of Black Lives Matter. Now, while that might sound like a very strange reason, it would seem that their method of treating their employees was inconsistent with what they were posting. And so it just felt so incongruous to those people that they couldn't stomach working for an employer who would make virtue signals of one thing and treat their employees in a different way. So they had some severe issues. We've also seen firms with legal issues for having not taken any kind of a stand, especially with the recent political, snowstorm, I want to call it, just this constant barrage of political tensions we've been hearing and seeing. A lot of people take social media, and a lot of employees are doing that. And of course, they see each other's posts, and that has translated based on what people respond to, what they like, what they show an angry face toward, and other things, to tensions going on between people who would otherwise need to work well together. And so that in one particular client has led to claims of harassment, and they had some serious fallout, and they were in part dealing with it because they didn't take a stand. They didn't get actively involved in helping to guide what was the right communication. And so what we're seeing is that while a lot of companies are having less dramatic issues, there is a definitive and profound impact on communication that is happening in businesses. It's impacting people's way of trusting each other, their way of working together. Some may be self-censoring, others saying offensive things. And it's really, both of those create the same level of destruction of teamwork and collaboration. And even if employers aren't seeing it right now, there is going to be a direct and lasting impact if they don't take note, because when the economy improves and things settle down and COVID's a thing of the past and we live in a new, hopefully much more pleasant year in 2021, people are going to look for a place that feels new and fresh, and they're going to see a lot of talent retention issues if they don't get a hold of the problems today. And that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm coaching our clients about and helping them to resolve.
Great, thank you. Well, I'd like to hear from the people that are on the call. So we're going to launch our second poll. I'd love to know, or we would love to know, what concerns or issues your clients have been sharing with you. So communication being stilted or less fluid, silos or exclusionary behaviors, increased complaints and about personal behaviors. Go ahead and start voting, y'all. Okay, limited willingness to give feedback, accountability issues, passive aggressive or undermining behaviors, issues or complaints regarding leadership, teamwork declining, or no one is talking about any of this stuff. Give you another 30 seconds to put your votes in, and this is multiple choice, so you can choose more than one if it's coming up. All right, 3, 2. I know it's kind of a 10 answers. All right, so we will end the polling and I will share the results. So it looks like a lot of leadership complaints, communication issues, and then accountability issues is number 1. Great, well, thank you for participating, everyone. So Yesenia, how have you been able to help clients stay ahead of these hot button issues?
Well, one example that I can share is And as you mentioned earlier, and Candace also hit on, this has been an unusual year, right? An election year, and at the start of the summer, we had a peak in the Black Lives Matters movement. And then, of course, there's this fear and instability over economics and furloughs and layoffs. And there's all these heightened emotions and tensions, and all of that has permeated the workplace. And so HR professionals working with our clients really had their work cut out for them. And we were receiving calls, as I'm sure Jeff was receiving calls, and many of you in the audience, over speech in the workplace and off-duty conduct. Although we were providing counseling on the legal issues, if we would have stopped there, we would have been really providing our clients a disservice. So we did something a little unusual this year that the employment group had never done before. And we collaborated with our existing clients and a few prospective clients who were interested. And we formed a three-part program called Moving the Needle Forward on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And it really discussed race relations and social justice issues and the workplace. And we formed 7 working groups. We try to connect clients in similar industries, entertainment, fashion in one group, manufacturing in another group, so that they would have commonalities. And we just had one of the themes was lean into risk and have these open discussions and have some dialogue with our clients about what diversity initiatives were working for them. What, if anything, were they doing to hold their leaders accountable for diversity? Were they tying it to compensation? What diversity initiatives completely failed, and they really want to warn others in this sort of small, safe space think group, want to warn the other companies about. And of course, we had 1 or 2 McDermott lawyers facilitate these discussions. But I think the real value here was that our clients weren't just hearing from McDermott's employment lawyers on the law and addressing diversity and race relations in the workplace within the confines of the law, but we're hearing from each other in partnership with their respective counsel, McDermott. And I think that there was a lot of value in that. We followed that up with a plenary session, a panel. We had panelists that are diversity and inclusion officers at their respective organizations, like United Airlines. We had Warner Brothers present, and they sort of started to tie everything together on these initiatives. And we ended this program with part 3, which was having Verna Myers speak, and she VP of diversity and inclusion with Netflix. And she really kind of tied it all together. And again, I think what our clients really appreciated is that McDermott's, we as McDermott employment lawyers realize we don't have all the answers. We're not diversity and inclusion officers. We can certainly refer them to D&I professionals or to other third-party professionals like Candace, who can provide some cultural assistance in the workplace. But we also thought that there'd be a tremendous amount of value of just connecting our clients with one another to have this dialogue.
Yesenia, may I ask, in the first discussions, how forthright were the client representatives? How willing were they to kind of open the door to what was going on in their organizations?
Yeah, I think what I found, I had the pleasure of hosting 2 think tanks, 2 working groups. And what I found is there were typically, we had anywhere between 10 and 12 representatives from not just the general counsel's office, but other C-suite executives. And some were very active, very engaged, and were very excited to showcase what initiatives they had in place. Some that were new in response to the BLM movement, and some that had already been in place for some time. There were others who I think were more reserved, despite the fact that we tried to keep the number down so that it would feel more like a safe space. There were some that were just not, I think, as comfortable as sharing, and you could tell in the amount of detail that they would provide. But I think as more and more of these executives began to share, and usually all it took was one or two to really start to drill down, then it got everybody else's juices flowing. And you saw a little bit more engagement and excitement and a real desire to go back to their respective organizations and say, you know, I participated in this program and I learned about these 3 initiatives that seem to be working for, you know, our peers in the same industry, and let's try that.
Congratulations on that program. That sounds like a really smart, helpful, valuable program.
Yeah, definitely. So Jeffrey, what have you experienced kind of amongst all of this turmoil with your clients, and how have you been able to provide value?
I think it's been important to stay in touch and to demonstrate an understanding of other people's circumstances. So I give 3 examples, and this isn't, you know, complicated stuff that I'm going to offer here, but keep your clients in mind, right? And demonstrate to them that you are thinking of them. So for example, a week ago, our family's CPA firm sent out an email blast about a new COVID-related business tax credit. If your business in California has been impacted to a certain extent by COVID, then there is a new tax credit the business may qualify for. So I took the time to think about who do I know who may qualify for this and may appreciate the information, and took 10 or 15 minutes and sent that email on to people individually. And that's a way to potentially help people and demonstrate that you're thinking of them. Secondly, I think during this pandemic, maybe more than ever, demonstrating to clients that we care about their dollars and that we are cost conscious is all the more important. And I think now more than even before, when alternative fee arrangements were the rage, it is important for us. I try to raise caps on fees, raise budgeting projects, giving people options on how to get the goal accomplished, right, with different sort of estimated price tags, but demonstrating that you are respectful of the expense of our service, I think goes a long way. One example there that is very current for our team is that I'm very deep into the new Cal OSHA COVID-19 pandemic prevention regulations. And so we have developed a package, and we are, as many firms are, trying to offer that to our clients at frankly a loss, and let them know respectfully that this is a loss for us, but that we want to support them in this very hard time. Finally, remember that clients and GCs and HR directors and all those other folk are human beings, and they are human beings with families and kids, and maybe things aren't great at home because everybody's stuck there, right? And we're not getting to the office, and we're not in person with our coworkers, some of whom, hey, we like. All right. So one thing that I have found helpful is simply to call people, and even maybe without arranging a Zoom call in advance, but just call and say, hi, you're on my mind. How are you? And it matters. It's helpful.
Thank you,
Jeff,
Jeff.
I just wanted to add that your statement really resonated with me, Jeff, because we actually, a small group of us in our employment group in Los Angeles, had decided to form a Zoom back in May. This is, when we had all been stuck at home for about a month and thought that, another couple months and we'll all go back to work. We coordinated with a few different clients. And it was just, sort of a socializing event. Everybody could bring their own wine or whatever they wanted to drink, water. And we actually had one of our clients, the GC of one of our clients, share with us, I really appreciate that your group did this. It was only 30 minutes, but I had forgotten how much I missed interacting with others. And I live alone, and this has been really lonely. So thank you for doing this. And can we please do this again next month? So Jeff, what you're saying about just checking in goes a long way with clients. So I appreciate what you're sharing.
Great. And so I'm realizing I did not introduce myself, right?
Lana, who are you?
I'm a Zoom bomber. Canelo. I'm a business development coach and trainer with Equinox Strategy Partners. And we work with attorneys and firms across the country to create and implement a personalized business development strategy that improves visibility, keeps our professionals top of mind with target audiences, and increases revenue. And I've been personally engaged in client development for nearly 20 years. So all of the strategies and methods that I coach to are not theoretical, but ones that I utilize personally. And I have been spending the last 9 months coaching all of our clients to exactly what you're talking about, Jeffrey and Yesenia, as to really doing that one-on-one outreach and acknowledging this very human reality that we're all sharing of the pandemic. I mean, it's been different for everyone, but I've yet to meet a person unscathed by what is happening here. So now is really the time for advisors to step up and lead their clients. And we know the most trusted advisors are focused on doing some key things like being proactive and present, as we've discussed, providing perspective, anticipating and thwarting future challenges, and of course, uncovering and designing solutions to current issues. Business development is based on relationships, so this ability to connect in a meaningful way is truly an opportunity. So Candace, what are you seeing the role of a trusted advisor, specifically employment counsel, play in today's landscape?
First, I want to agree with the comments that have been made by each of the three of you on the panel regarding connecting and being in touch. And I want to echo another piece to that, which is that business owners really need to look, and not just owners, leaders, managers, and employee to employee at times need to also look at, they aren't just to be talking to their customer base. They need to be looking internally in their own organization and creating those meaningful connections. And that's part of how we are all going to hopefully get through this better and stay connected. A trusted advisor really needs to offer insight that they can have as an outside perspective on the rationale for why a business needs to do different things, why they need to acknowledge issues and not ignore them. All too often, just like those examples I gave, businesses are inclined to not talk about the problems that are going on and to focus on the structures of business as usual, focus on client retention, focus on service, focus on really important things to maybe the strategic plan, but none of those account for the human part. And I think a trusted advisor needs to echo that back and really help business leaders and owners to know that acknowledging the issues is really the only way to get in front of them and to address them so they don't end up having repercussions. One of the things that I would advise specifically for employment counsel to bring forward is some of the very things we've been doing. And we did this, with our clients, but it's to, make sure that, especially those that you're connected with, which are probably the owners and the senior leadership, make sure they know that after acknowledging the issues, they don't need to get in there and resolve things for people. They just need to make it very human, very real, very normal, and let them know that this is real. But especially where there's divide, whether it's cultural or political or otherwise, that people are feeling separated, help them come back together. And business owners and leaders really need to recognize that it's not hard if they focus on the corporate values and those shared things that make everybody come to this company to begin with. There's a reason people were there, and it just is something so easy for leadership to transition so that they can retain their staff, they can keep them motivated, keep them productive, and not risk losing them later because they fragment. When it comes to the other members of the organization, we offer some suggestions as well, which I think a trusted advisor can mention to senior leaders. And then that can have that trickle down to what the managers should be doing and what HR should be doing. And those things are more of that direct connection. So managers, they really need to be reaching out to their employees one at a time, picking up the phone, making the call, seeing how they're doing, taking the temperature on the issues that that person may be facing. That's the only way to know that the issue's there. Not reaching out doesn't make them go away. It just means you can't deal with them. And so we're really strongly encouraging that. The role HR needs to play is to basically be that person that reaches out to all the managers. And through the example of doing so, modeling the behavior that will be helpful. And this is how, the whole business can stay connected, can stay collaborative, and can stay aware of what issues or hurdles are currently in their midst and which ones are down the road. And I think the more Employment Council can attend to those issues, the more they're going to be able to be of such value to the businesses they serve.
Great. Well, let's shift back into discussing client development and outreach since March. I'm going to launch our third poll to hear kind of where everyone has been focused in their client development activities. So please put your votes in if you are reaching out to clients to check in, active roles on webinars, panels, and presentations, podcasts. I used panels in there twice. Authoring articles, client alerts and/or white papers, reaching out to colleagues and referral partners, hosting virtual get-togethers. Yesenia, you can vote. Sending physical items to clients, prospects, referral partners, facilitating introductions to people in your network, or you're just too busy to do any of these, which lots of our clients are, barely able to keep their head out of water. All right, so let's go 2 more seconds. All right, so I will share the results. Looks like most people are doing things alone at their desk, like author articles, client alerts, or white papers. So I guess the second is reaching out to clients, and that is where I'm definitely seeing the best results. But I think the combination of the two also creates the best results. So you write the white paper, and then you do the individual outreach to share with the clients and highlight the things that are specifically relevant to them. All right, so let's get rid of that. So in March and April, we saw a lot of firms just putting a pin in their marketing and business development, waiting for this all to blow over and for things to calm down. And many professionals were unsure how to do business development without meeting in person. Some were afraid they'd appear salesy or insensitive if they did some outreach. And some were just unsure of how to be of service to their clients. So Yesenia, how have you been able to proactively be of value to firm clients since March?
So our employment group has done a variety of things, and I'm going to share one example that is probably not the most impressive, but has actually worked out in generating business for me this summer. And that is, even before this pandemic, we all subscribe to different publications that advise us who's being sued, where, for what, and it allows us to, request to be invited to respond to an RFP to handle the litigation. So, I've still been doing that. We're still subscribing to those publications, but been doing it in a little bit of a different way. And so for those of us who are at full service firms like Jeff, where we've got colleagues who are in other departments, energy, real estate, corporate, healthcare, there's a real opportunity there to develop business by collaborating with our team in other departments. And so what I often would do is if one of my colleagues' clients was sued for an employment matter, I'd let them know that I and our team, we've got a team of 10 lawyers in Los Angeles, we're available to talk to their client. If their client already has outside counsel, that's okay. We're still happy to talk to them off the clock, no charge, just to talk about some strategic ideas, a few options for handling the litigation. Occasionally, clients will say, no, we're very comfortable and but appreciate the offer. Others will say, you know what, I'll take you up on that. It's free, and I get 2 or 3 different McDermott partners. Why not? And so inevitably, it's just a very informal discussion, and it's been through Zoom. where we talk about the case. And it does, it requires some time commitment, right? Because you don't just review the claims, but you got to actually think about and, perform some analysis as a defense lawyer as to how you would handle the matter and give them a few ideas. That those initial conversations have actually turned into invitations to put together a proposal to handle the case and a budget. And as a result, I was able to secure 2 class actions this summer using sort of that method, which I'm not a big, strong salesperson. I'm here. I can showcase my team. I can certainly provide some high-level advice as to ideas on how you can get rid of a case quickly or not, but survive it. Just different options, and clients really appreciate that. And I think for me, it's more genuine, and it has worked for my style of business development. So it's worked out. But I want to just drill down a little bit on one of those examples where I secured a healthcare client, or I should say secured their class action. They were already a firm client. So, it's not a completely new client, but it's a new client to the employment department. And I want to drill down because they really liked their former outside counsel. And defense firms tend to compete a lot, right? We feel like there's unlimited amount of work, so we're going to compete and not share. And, the chief executive officer had said to me, I really like my relationship with them. They do our counseling. And, McDermott, you guys charge a little bit higher rates, maybe not a little bit. And that's probably not exactly what he was thinking. But he really liked our team and our strategy and wanted us to be the ones to employ it. But he said, I would love it if you would collaborate with my other outside counsel. If there are parts of the litigation that you can delegate to them, collaborate with them, work with them. I'd love for you two to team up. And this is the first time in my career in 17 years that I'll be doing that. And I'm actually going to start thinking about that more when talking to clients, because they do appreciate this level of collaboration from all of their service partners.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So Jeff, same question. How have you been able to be creative and expand on your current relationships?
So we have, the example that I'll give is a mid-market client. They are national. They've been a long-term client of mine. Their GC is one of my favorite people. I was brought in to counsel the organization on terminating a long-term high-risk employee. The employee had been employed by the company for 25 years. The employee had gone through one very long, difficult disability accommodation negotiation several years ago. And now a condition had relapsed and was active, and she was seeking accommodation again. So I was brought in simply to strategize concluding the employment relationship, which was challenging enough. What I discovered in becoming familiar with the situation was that my client had completely botched the FMLA and CIFRA leave administration. And we had violations of the FMLA and CIFRA all over the place. And they'd been going on for a year by this point, almost. And they were all attributable to the director of human resources. Great. So I had an obligation, and I genuinely, wanted to. It's our job. We want to fix things, right? So the challenge there was, how do I bring forward the leave administration problems while maintaining a good relationship with the HR director, right? Because all of this is her responsibility. And I was able to do that, finesse that in a way that was completely successful. And my relationship with the HR director is maybe stronger at this point than it was before. The relationship with the GC is certainly strong. He was very appreciative of my bringing this forward, and the engagement expanded. That is, to also correcting the problems in their misunderstanding of the FMLA and CIFRA, replacing all the forms they were using, and teaching these people how to administer those leave laws in compliance with the law. So it ended up being, and the termination was successfully accomplished. So forging through, I guess, is the lesson there. Forge through, figure it out. Don't give up, give it your best. And we ended up being of extra service to the client.
Great. Well, just to go back to Yesenia and for some of the people that are on the call that are not with full service firms, I've seen a lot of success in finding other boutique firms. If you're with a boutique firm or you're a solo practitioner, to find relationships that are complementary with corporate attorneys, or there's different attorney practice areas that are helpful to forge these types of relationships and do these collaborative efforts. So the method makes a ton of sense, and I feel like attorneys take a little warming up to that sort of thing, but the results are generally really great, and you come across opportunities you wouldn't otherwise find on your own. So while conferences and client lunches won't be coming back for a while, I think there's been a lot of silver linings to the events of this year. So no traveling or commuting. People are generally more accessible than they've been before. And then, we've mentioned people are deprived of social activities and interested in genuine, meaningful human interaction. And there's new problems to solve. And, video calls are now the norm. While that would have been very difficult to schedule a video call in December of 2019 with a prospective client. Now it's kind of the expectation, which is a huge advantage over, a telephone or an email, because 70% of our communication is nonverbal. So with everything going on, a lot of attorneys are busier than ever. We find that our clients want to ensure that the momentum they have today continues through 2021. So Yesenia, what are some ways you've been able to bring on new clients since March?
So McDermott, like many other firms, developed a coronavirus response team, task force. And it's made up of an interdisciplinary team of attorneys, not just employment lawyers, but corporate lawyers, government relations attorneys, attorneys in our healthcare practice group. And we actually all had to learn how to use Teams because we couldn't just keep sending each other so many emails whenever a new law or a new issue arose, as a way to really coordinate with one another. And because we were all suddenly pandemic lawyers. I mean, regardless of what area of law you were in, we were all pandemic lawyers and trying to figure out how to navigate this. And, Jeff and I will probably be honest with you, we were looking at what other law firms were doing. Fox Rothschild put out, probably Jeff drafted it. He's probably the author of this really terrific chart of, what happens if you're going to lay off an employee because of, in the pandemic, and what laws apply, FFCRA, California paid sick leave. So we were all trying to figure out how to navigate this together and looking at what others were doing and coming up with our own solutions for clients. I found that the task force was incredibly valuable. Any big firm who didn't do that probably missed the boat, because clients really needed that. They didn't care about learning about wage and hour class action solutions, which gets me excited. They didn't care about litigating PAGA cases, which gets me excited. This summer, I turned into a pandemic lawyer, and I went from being an employment lawyer to being an unemployment lawyer, which meant that I had to study the EDD website so that I could answer basic questions like, how much are our employees going to receive in unemployment if we furlough them? And how much supplemental income will they get from the federal government? And what can we do to supplement their income so they can survive this for the next 6 months? We value our talent and want to bring them back, and we want to soften the blow. And so, really, I think the takeaway for me was remaining flexible and really listening to clients and being prepared to give them what they wanted, not what I really wanted to talk about. And I don't always have the answers. So I'm really lucky to have a team that works really well with one another. Jeff is an expert at Cal OSHA. Right now, there are tons of Cal OSHA issues. We've got someone on our team who's an expert at Cal OSHA. So there's a lot of collaboration with other attorneys within the group so that we can all really develop an expertise around certain areas and then be able to collectively advise, our client base.
Great. So Jeffrey, what has been successful for you in uncovering new opportunities this year?
I think Yesenia's tactic or approach is the looking forward approach, and I think that has obvious relevance and is what is needed here. One of the basics to remember, though, also is to remember who you know already and have relationships with, and maybe haven't spoken to or touched in a long time. So one of the things I did during the pandemic was look back at lists and contact lists and identify people I hadn't touched in a long time. And I emailed and I called, and one of the lawyers who I've known for 25 years, and I had not spoken to her for 10 years, probably. I emailed her, and she was more than happy to have a call. We had a call. We both had a delightful time. And a week later, she referred a PAGA case to me. And so it's just another example of remember the basics. People are people, stay in touch with them. Be a nice person who they like to talk to. Those things matter.
Yeah, well, and I think you forget it's actually fun. It feels like, you're checking the box for business development, but I find that those are, fun conversations, and I get as much out of it generally as the client just in the moment. Yes.
Well, and I'd drop a note here. The most successful client relationships I have had are with people who I genuinely like and respect, right? The clients who I do not respect, let's say perhaps due to their lack of allegiance to the truth or other character traits, I don't really like. I don't get along with them too well, and pretty soon one of us moves on. So I like to find people I like to work with.
Good. I love that. We should all be, reaching out to the people we enjoy. I think it's a lot easier. So Yesenia or Jeffrey, what issues have you uncovered that provided an opportunity to bring in other professionals that would be of benefit to your employer clients?
Yesenia, please.
Sure. Well, this actually takes me back to a client that I started working with just this year in the middle of the pandemic. It's a healthcare client that was founded by husband and wife. Husband is a physician and wife is great at operations, and they grew a healthcare practice, 36 offices across the state of California. Did a really nice job with the organization and sold most of it to private equity a few years ago. Private equity has stepped in and is now really growing the organization at a much more rapid rate. But that's causing some cultural issues in the workplace. They want to create an environment where employees, not that the founders don't, but they really strive to focus on employees and valuing employees and getting their buy-in and their opinions and a lot of collaboration. Whereas, the founders, because this was sort of their baby, they're used to looking at a problem. They're very good at compliance, solving it, and sending out a directive. This is how we're going to do it. This is how you're all going to do it. So do it. Whereas now the culture's changed, and here's the issue. Let's have a meeting about it. Let's have a second meeting about it so we can get other decision makers to weigh in. And now let's think about all of our options. And so there's this struggle between the founders and the new leadership, executive leadership. And again, this is where I have to recognize that I can certainly provide legal advice as an employment attorney, but at certain points, I have to look outside my team's ability to support the company. And I have to look to people like Candace, who can really come in and say, okay, this is a cultural teamwork type issue, and I can assist with this. And so partnering with folks like Candace is really helpful.
So Candace, I'd love to hear from you how you would guide counsel and the people on this call in regards to questions to ask to really understand where the issues might be and how they can be kind of preemptively looking at things. Oh, you're muted. Or are you muted, or is that just me?
I did mute. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thanks for pointing that out. Yes, you know it, and Yesenia, programs like that are certainly ones where we have had a pleasure of helping and partnering with counsel, because, you know, those kind of soft interpersonal things are the ones that keep the business afloat. If you lose all your employees, you're suddenly in a whole different ball game. So, you know, some of the things that are just, for us, I would say the more fundamental is just for employment counsel to just ask questions to find out where the business is. What are they doing about issues? And so a very basic question that I would suggest is to ask the employers, whether it's an owner, even, you know, members of the leadership team, if there's several people like general counsel and so forth you're in touch with, what are they doing as a business to take the temperature of their employees and of the health and well-being of the client, of themselves as a business. And this isn't just true in 2020. This is true all the time. It's really important to know, how are they identifying whether or not things are going well or not? And, you know, there's really two options, right? Yes or no. We're doing something or we're not. So if they're doing something, my follow-up is, you know, well, what plans are in place for managing the issues you identify? You know, just what are you doing next? And if they say they're not doing anything, it's okay, well, how will you know that a problem exists? And often, you know, employers don't necessarily give a lot of thought to this in advance, especially if they're like the business Yesenia was describing. They develop and they grow over time. And even organizations I've seen, I've worked with some that started with a ragtag group of 5 people who wore every hat all the time and now have over 300 people in their business. And it's hard to let go of some of those responsibilities and start paying attention to the fact there's other voices and other contributors. But those contributors need to feel like they're connected and that they have a voice. And so that's where it becomes really important that there is that level of inclusion. There is that effort to find out how everybody is experiencing the business and the work and the community of people they work with.
Well, we're talking a lot about collaboration, but I've found that it's really one of the most underutilized methods of client development, even though it yields the best results. So whether that's co-hosting a webinar with a client, co-authoring articles or client alerts with a colleague, participating in podcasts, creating a video series, the ways of collaborating are as numerous as the benefits. And I think the number one benefit is it's a lot more fun to work alongside people that are like-minded. And the second benefit is it's half the work, or you know, however many, a quarter of the work. Plus you're able to bolster your relationships with your collaborator. And then oftentimes you're also getting exposure to your collaborators' network, and it boosts your own credibility. So Yesenia, I know you have lots of examples of collaboration. What have you had success with in regards to teaming up with clients outside of what you've already discussed?
So when I litigate, I tend to litigate either, I've had quite a bit of litigation involving staffing companies. Either I represent the staffing company or I represent the company that in industries like logistics and transportation that rely heavily on staffing companies. So I find that industry very interesting. So we've formed a collaboration with one of our clients who is a staffing company, and they want to deliver value to their client base. And so what they do to deliver value to their client base is they host quarterly trainings. they've now turned into webinars this year, but eventually they'll go back to being live trainings. And they put out a very nice lunch, and they have typically 2 McDermott attorneys come and present on some legal topic. And they actually will find out from their client base what they want to hear about, and we will put the content together to deliver what they want to hear. It's a win-win for everybody. The staffing company gets to deliver immediate value to clients without charging those clients, and they get some free legal guidance in the process. And it's a win for McDermott, because inevitably a training that yields 150, 200 attendees will result in a few of those folks coming forward and saying, hey, I really thought, that the thing you were talking about, arbitration agreements and the class action waivers, I want to talk to you about a little more about that to see if it'll work for us, if it's time for us to start thinking along those lines. So it generates new clients for us as well. And you're right, Lana, it's a lot of fun. This particular staffing company has a team of great professionals, and they're a lot of fun to work with.
So Jeffrey, same question. Have you had luck with collaboration and business development this year?
Absolutely. So I've been working on a particular relationship for a couple of months now. I was contacted by a company out of Northern California that is providing A to Z pandemic related services to businesses on sort of a cafeteria plan. So if the employer wants testing on site and their workplace inspected, and maybe some HR policies, but they don't want something else, they buy whatever service they want. So I was contacted by that company because one of the things they weren't offering yet was a referral to legal counsel. They had an HR partner who was providing HR advice. And so we've developed the relationship, and the collaboration is really multifold. This company out of Northern California is not a client of the firm, and yet I've sort of been able to give them suggestions on issues to address in their platform, provide some non-legal advice, general information to help them. And then where this is ultimately landing is that Fox Rothschild, with me as the go-to person, will now be the exclusive employment law firm to whom that Northern California business refers its clients for employment law advice across the US, excluding the San Francisco Bay Area. So I have high hopes for the relationship, and that relationship building required collaboration, not only with the outside company in Northern California, but the general counsel's office in my law firm, people on my L&E team, because we had to make sure that we could meet the need, and our law firm's alternative fee guru, because we're going to need to offer these services to the ultimate clients on some sort of a discount or affordable rate. So it's really been an all hands on deck kind of experience. I think it's contributed to my profile in the firm at this early point in my tenure here. And it's been fun. It's required imagination. So.
Great. Well, we've heard a lot of examples of collaboration. Candace, I'd love to hear what you think advisors should be doing more of.
I'm going to sound like a broken record. It's a bit of the same as what I've been saying. I think focusing on what might otherwise be considered soft tissue issues, being proactive in finding out how businesses are managing employee tensions or just identifying if there are any. And when I say if, I really don't mean if, because there are always something. I used to, in programs where I do speaking engagements, I'd often start the talk by saying, how many of you have issues of workplace conflict in your organization? And usually most people would leave their hands down, and I'd say, oh, so you're all self-employed. Because the reality is when people work together, there are moments of tension. No, they don't all need resolution. No, they don't even need any additional support or help. Most of the time people can communicate with those people on their own, but there are oftentimes they cannot. And just keeping in front of owners, keeping in front of your clients as counsel, and making sure they're finding that out. You end up getting the litigious work because they have ignored those issues, not because those issues weren't there until the last minute. I've worked with clients that have told me, oh yeah, we've been dealing with this issue for over 20 years. 20 years. And this is the sort of thing I cringe when I hear it, because it's very difficult for us even to support and help create change when there's such rooted problems. But there's always hope, and we're really optimistic in believing that there is. So in my experience, it's just being willing to ask those questions, being willing to scratch beneath the surface and saying, hey, we know that this is especially now, it's a great time to practice. It's a really highly emotional time for people. What are you doing to tap into that? And so counsel asking your clients that is going to really be a differentiator that shows you really have the heart to care beyond the legal issues that they're bringing to you.
Well, we're coming up to the hour, and I feel like this has been a really valuable conversation. I've enjoyed it quite a bit. Are there any final thoughts you want to leave us with, Jeff and Yesenia?
Yesenia.
I'll just offer support to anybody who's trying to build their book of business. I've been really lucky in my career. I've had great support. I worked for Fox Rothschild for over a decade. I had great mentors there. And if you're in the audience and really want to, look at your client development efforts, I'd be happy to, and I do this on LinkedIn, I'd be happy to talk about my path and what works for me. What works for one may not work for all, but happy to be of support.
I had a final thought as well after Jeffrey.
Oh, go ahead. It's fine, Candace.
I was just going to say, I didn't mention this, but our firm has put together a lot of resources, and one of them is a micro training series that breaks down those topics I was suggesting that counsel can bring forward. So it was meant for the business, but I think it's going to be really important if counsel is going to suggest these ideas to their clients. So I want to offer that to you as a resource. It's a 4-part micro training series, and if you're interested in getting more information, just email me.
Thank you, Candace.
Everyone participating will get an email with a link to this and everyone's contact information afterwards. And Jeff, anything to leave us with?
Oh, just a couple of words. In my experience, business development has to be authentic. To enlarge on what Yesenia said, I think each person has to find their own path that is genuine for them. And it is a path that takes time, and you have to be brave. do the things that you imagine you want to do, but are afraid to do.
Great. Well, as we heard today, there are many ways to be of service and differentiate yourself as an invaluable resource and advisor to your employer clients. Being proactive and collaborative seems to be the theme of this hour, and good ideas are everywhere, but the challenge for all of us is creating an actionable strategy and staying consistent. And I encourage everyone to find resources to make that happen, whether it's utilizing technology, assistants, marketing professionals, consultants, or even a colleague that holds you accountable, as Yesenia so generously offered. And 2020 has created a ton of chaos and suffering, but I think it also has uncovered a lot of opportunities for those who can be nimble and embrace change. And I want to thank our panelists for being here today and wish everyone that joined us a healthy and prosperous 2021. Thank you all.